The news landed with a thud and a sigh. House Speaker John Boehner tried to beef it up with a statement expressing the import of the role, but announcing Michigan Congresswoman Candace Miller as the chairwoman of the House Administration Committee on Friday. The House Administration Committee, I'm going to say it one more time, the House Administration Committee on Friday did little to squelch that icky feeling created by this image. These are the 19 previously announced committee chairmen, and unlike Miller, these chairmen actually hold rank over committees that work on national budgets and policy. No, your eyes are not deceiving you. You saw it right. Want to look again? Here it is. See? You had it right. 19 men, 19 white men. And yes, we fully understand that as Republicans maintain the majority in the House, they get to pick the committee chairs. And yes, there is seniority to consider. But pause with me for just a second. President Obama won the women's vote by 11 points. He won Latino vote by 44 points. He won the Asian American vote by 47 points. He won the African American vote by 87 points. He even won other. I don't know, by 20 points. Those are, yes, anyway. And they're the kind of numbers that had pundits espousing that demographics are destiny and that the Republican Party is over and headed the way of the Whigs. And then Speaker Boehner makes his committee chair selection, and the GOP sure seems nothing short of oblivious. But let's go back to our new herd for 2016 for a moment, because as we've talked about, 4 women as potential standard bearers, 5 contenders of color in the Republican Party, and ideology should outweigh identity when it comes to political alignment. But there is no denying that as women and people of color grow in the ranks of the GOP, there is room to attract potential voters as well. And then this morning, or just yesterday, Mike Fleck, a state lawmaker in Pennsylvania, as I was saying before the break, comes out as a gay man in his interview with a local newspaper. He says, I'm staying in the Republican Party. It's not a single issue party. And it starts feeling like maybe they're trying to pitch that big tent again.
They should.
Yeah.
Their tent's been looking kind of small recently. There was a San Diego guy who unfortunately lost for mayor by a couple thousand votes named Carl DeMaio, openly gay, Republican. Mm-hmm. No one made a big deal about it nationally. In fact, David Brooks screwed up and wrote a column 6 months ago positing him as some kind of knuckle-dragging social con. It's like, dude, he's openly gay and he's running on pension reform. What are you talking about? There has to be that new voice out there. But they have to, it's going to be years before they can erase the stain of 2004, when Karl Rove cynically used gay marriage as a way to rally Republican votes against the Mitt Romney of the Democratic Party of 2004. And so they're going to have to come out from behind that. And I think you do that by playing defense on social conservatism and not offense. You say, big government policies force us to do things against our values, and that's what we don't want. We don't want to impose anything going forward. Social cons have to make that switch. They haven't yet, but they're going to have to if they're going to attract people.
But it feels to me like it always breaks down on exactly the issue of women's reproductive rights. So on this question of big government, because you'll hear, okay, what we want is small government, right? Small enough, as was our joke, to fit on the end of a transvaginal probe, as we saw, right, in the context of Bob McDonnell. And yet this blew me away. We're looking at the Quinnipiac poll on Bob McDonnell's approval ratings, and you will see he's actually doing quite well with women, quite well with African Americans, quite well with young people. This is the guy who proposed the transvaginal ultrasound procedures in Virginia. Am I missing something here?
Well, voters are not. You can't. It's again that whole single issue. You can't zero in on one issue. He's been an outstanding governor. Okay, I'm a little biased. He is my governor, so I will give that caveat. But I think at the end of the day, to your point, we have to be much broader from an optics and a tone standpoint. That's obvious, and I think that those pictures obviously speak 1,000 words. But to all due respect, there are very credible women and minorities within the party, within the ranks that we should elevate. Very credible white men and others that we should also elevate through the ranks. And I think they do well because of the types of things that they are doing in these states that help bridge the gap.
But let's talk about the optics for a second, because it does feel to me. Particularly on the side of politics that you're on, it does matter what it looks like when you present your party to
Right. It does, and I think going forward, not just in terms of the optics, but I do think when we look at like this whole new herd and all these people, there are some people in the new herd who are really part of the old herd. I think they have to get out of the way. People like Rick Santorum, who are so linked to this very social conservatism that turns a lot of people off, because 4 years from now
but you have to remember
we might
that
see even a more liberal electorate.
Conservative. We can't. no one's going to throw the baby away with the bathwater relative to those principal beliefs, because you do have pro-life women in the party.
Sure.
We should embrace those. We should embrace other views as well. You can be a big tent party and respect the views of others who have those views. I do think part of aren't the driving issue.
But I guess what I'd say is that they have been, and that part of like this question of. So I hear you on not being a single issue voter, but I don't. For me, reproductive rights are not a single issue, but because they in fact carry with them a package of issues about my fundamental liberties. They carry with them a package of issues about economics. They carry with them a package of issues about sort of where women will be positioned vis-a-vis work and employment and all of these questions. So it's, it sounds like a single issue, but it feels much bigger than that.
Right. It covers more, like you said. And I really do think that the GOP has to go through a sort of churn to reevaluate its own positions, because, politics, it's a buyer's market. And right now they have a brand, they have a product that half the country does not like. So I think they have to make themselves more appealing. It's up to them.
And just to comment on that poll you put up, those approval numbers are quite impressive for the governor, but attitudes don't translate into votes.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
Attitudes don't translate into behavior. So people might approve of the governor, but they're not going to vote for him necessarily.
And let's remember how much the politics changes overnight. We think that we're talking about things, but in 2006, Democrats were freaking out. How can we retake things? They put forth a lot of anti-abortion candidates, right? That won through, and a lot of anti-trade candidates. So, I mean, what we think now is got to be true. It's going to change.
And I think it's also interesting to point out that, I think we have to be careful about assuming that the Democratic Party is strong at the moment. It had a strong presidential candidate, right? And I think we made
lost
this
horribly at the state level.
Right. Who made I think we made a very similar mistake in our analysis of what happened during the Clinton years. So you end up with this big charismatic candidate that seems to fill up all the space. That doesn't necessarily mean that the party itself is strong. When we come back, much more on one of the fundamental issues that has been dividing this Democratic and Republican Party, the issue of immigration, and how the GOP is starting to think about shifting gears on immigration and the real pressure that President Obama may feel on it. That's next.